They thought muting me on Zoom would shut me up. That was their first mistake. 1 second, I was presenting months of work, and the next silence, my mic was cut. Cameras were still rolling, eyes still watching, but suddenly I wasn't allowed to speak in a meeting I was supposed to lead. And just like that, everything I had built, every hour I spent, was dismissed with a single click. But what they didn't realize was that I had receipts, and I wasn't going to walk away quietly. This story isn't just about a muted mic, it's about control, cover-ups, and a secret buried deep within the company we all trusted. Project Chimera. It sounded like a typical internal tool, just another codename buried in the back end. But when I started asking the wrong questions, digging a little deeper, suddenly everyone got real quiet. Meetings got shorter, emails stopped being answered, and then came the Zoom call. The one where they tried to erase me, live, while pretending everything was fine. I wasn't the only one who noticed. One colleague DM'd me during the meeting, "They're hiding something. Be careful." And that was enough for me to start tracing the digital breadcrumbs chat logs. Hidden folders, strangely worded memos that seemed harmless at first. But as I followed the trail, the picture became clearer. This wasn't just corporate politics. This was intentional, and what Project Chimera was really about. Let's just say it had the power to change a lot more than people's job titles. So no, I didn't stay quiet. I started recording, started collecting, and when the time was right, I took my shot. But this story doesn't end with revenge, it begins with it. Because what I found next made me question everything, and everyone. It started 6 months earlier. Back then, I was just another team lead, grinding through product sprints, buried in deadlines, and KP is war. We were told Project Chimera was a strategic optimization initiative. Whatever that meant, on paper, it looked harmless. Streamline workflows, automate processes, reduce internal costs. The usual corporate buzzwords. But something didn't sit right. The data logs they asked us to run didn't match up with what we were told. There were gaps files that didn't exist, user activity that couldn't be traced. And most confusing of all, access permissions that shouldn't have been granted to people far above our pay grade. Remember one meeting in particular and early preview of Chimera's beta build. I raised a few questions about the usage metrics. Harmless stuff, but the moment I spoke up, the room got cold. My manager gave me this look like I'd just stepped out of line. No one answered my question. They just moved on. That was the first red flag. Then strange things started happening. Files I had saved vanished. Drafts I was working on were overwritten without explanation. And when I asked IT about it, they brushed it off like it was just a sync issue. But I knew it wasn't. I started keeping backups on a separate drive off the company network. And that's when I noticed something odd. Chimera was tapping into internal communication threads messages, meeting recordings, even flagged search terms inside our internal wiki. It was learning, adapting, and most of all, hiding. I confronted one of the junior developers over coffee. He looked exhausted, eyes darting around like someone was watching. "Don't poke too hard," he whispered. "People who ask too many questions get reassigned." He left before I could ask what that meant. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just about a silenced mic. Something deeper was at play, and I wasn't backing down. From that point on, every day felt like walking a tightrope. I started noticing small things, an email thread that mysteriously disappeared, a colleague suddenly avoiding eye contact, whispered conversations stopping as I walked by. The deeper I dug into Project Chimera, the more it felt like I was poking at something one wanted uncovered. It wasn't just a software update or a system upgrade. It was like a shadow running beneath everything, pulling strings quietly but firmly. One of my teammates, Sarah, confided in me after a late-night shift. She had found encrypted files hidden deep inside the project folders files that didn't match any of our tasks or goals. When she brought it up to our manager, the response was cold and dismissive, warning her to stay focused on the assigned work. That warning only made us more suspicious. Why hide something from the team working directly on it? Meanwhile, I started piecing together strange access logs. Someone was logging into our systems at odd hours, sometimes from overseas IP addresses. The company's IT said it was routine maintenance, but why wasn't anyone telling us? What was being accessed and why in secret? I also reached out to a former employee who had left abruptly 6 months earlier. She was hesitant at first, but finally admitted she'd noticed similar oddities projects wiped. Information deliberately obscured and a culture of silence enforced from the top. She hinted that Project Chimera might be more about control than efficiency. It's a way for certain executives to monitor and manipulate internal operations without anyone noticing. With each conversation and discovery, the tension inside the company grew. People were afraid to speak openly, meetings felt staged, and trust was cracking. I wasn't just fighting to expose the truth anymore. I was trying to protect the people caught in the middle, including myself. But the higher I climbed into this rabbit hole, the clearer it became that Project Chimera wasn't just a problem to fix, was a secret powerful enough to silence anyone who got too close. And then, just when I thought I was close to breaking the story wide open, they did it. Again. Mid-Zoom, my microphone went dead. This time, I knew it was more than a mistake. It was a message. The question was, how far were they willing to go to keep me quiet? After that second time, my mic was cut mid-Zoom. I knew things were spiraling. Faster than I expected. It wasn't just about silencing one voice anymore, it was about shutting down the whole conversation. I started receiving strange emails, vague but clearly warnings, stop digging. You don't know what you're messing with, and even a couple that were plain threats disguised as company policy reminders. But instead of backing off, I felt the pressure pushing me forward. Like something inside me refused to stay quiet. I began working late into the night, sifting through layers of code, internal memos, and backups I'd secretly saved. What I found was chilling Project Chimera wasn't just an automation tool. It was a massive surveillance system designed to monitor employees in real time, tracking not only work performance, but private conversations, personal messages, and even unspoken thoughts captured through behavioral data. The more I learned, the more I realized how deep this went. This wasn't just about one department or a few bad actors. It was a system built to control the entire company from the shadows. At the same time, my relationships at work started to strain. Sarah stopped replying to my messages, her usual openness replaced with silence. Other colleagues avoided me in the halls, casting nervous glances. I even caught my manager staring at me during meetings, a coldness in his eyes I hadn't seen. Before, the lines between ally and enemy blurred, and I had to question who, if anyone, I could really trust. One night, while reviewing security footage I managed to access, I saw someone entering my office late after hours, a figure I recognized, but couldn't place their intentions. Were they there to warn me or to intimidate me? The unknown made every moment feel heavier. The tension was suffocating. Every call, every message, every step I took felt like it could trigger something bigger. I was on the edge close to exposing Project Chimera for what it really was, but also risking everything to do it. And then, the company announced a surprise all-hands meeting, a gathering that felt less like an update and more like a trap. Whatever happened next would change everything. The day of the surprise all-hands meeting arrived, and the entire company seemed to move with a quiet tension I hadn't seen before. As I logged into the Zoom call, I noticed something strange. The usual list of participants was missing. No names, no faces, just a blank screen with a ticking countdown. It felt less like a meeting and more like a countdown to something I couldn't yet understand. Then, out of nowhere, the screen flickered and a pre-recorded message played. It wasn't from any executive I recognized. Instead, a calm, emotionless voice announced that Project Chimera had entered its next phase, something called Phase 2, which would increase monitoring and introduce new protocols for company security and efficiency. But the biggest shock came when the message directly addressed me. "Your recent actions have been noted," it said. "Continued interference will result in immediate suspension and further investigation." The room felt colder, even through the screen. It was clear they knew I was digging, and now they were escalating the threat. After the call ended, my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "You're not alone. Meet me tonight. We have to talk." My heart raced. Was this a trap or my first real ally? I hesitated, but decided to go. That night, I met with a former insider who'd vanished from the company months ago. She revealed something that shifted everything. Project Chimera wasn't just about surveillance or control inside the company. It was tied to external clients, governments even, who were using the technology for far darker purposes. The efficiency was a cover for a massive data operation that could affect millions of lives beyond our office walls. Suddenly, a conflict wasn't just about saving my job or exposing a shady project, it was about uncovering. That night, after meeting with the insider, everything changed. Armed with new information and a drive I hadn't felt before, I gathered every piece of evidence. I had encrypted files, hidden communications, and screenshots of that chilling Zoom message. I decided to leak the truth, not just within the company, but to the world. I found a secure channel, reached out to a trusted journalist, and sent everything over. The story of Project Chimera, its secret surveillance, and the dark web of control finally began to surface. The next morning, chaos exploded inside the company. Executives scrambled, trying to control the damage, but it was too late. Employees were demanding answers. Regulators started asking questions. And all along, I was watching from the sidelines, knowing I had taken down more than just a project. I had exposed a system designed to manipulate and silence thousands. But just when I thought the battle was won, the final twist hit me like a punch in the gut. A late-night message popped up on my phone from an unknown contact. "You think this is over?" Project Chimera was just the beginning. The message included a link, one that led to a deeper layer of the network, something far more complex and dangerous than I'd imagined. Someone or something was still watching, still controlling, and still waiting. The fight wasn't over, not by a long shot. And as the screen went dark, I realized the real story was only just beginning.